How do you treat these people? Well, first of all, how do you identify them? Or how do I identify people who have autism? Well, we're going to make two videos on this because there's so many things. We don't want to cram it all in one video. So we've got 8 things we want to talk about today. And we'll talk about 8 more tomorrow, but we're going to tie it all together at the end. And maybe you can think of some things that we didn't mention. And if you have autism as I do, you can say, hey, I recognize that, and you may want to let us know in the comment section how you want to be treated when you come across with these traits. Well, trait number 1, when I'm trying to recognize a person with autism, is they have difficulty fitting in with others. And obviously, not everybody who doesn't fit in necessarily has autism, but that tends to be the number 1 telltale sign that this person is autistic. Is, I like to use the analogy of a drop of oil in a bucket of water. I mean, it's in the water, but it just doesn't fit in. It just doesn't mix. It's not part of it. It's in it. It's not part of it. So people with autism, we are in a social group. Could be school, work, church, neighborhood, wherever. We just don't seem to fit in. That's not a problem with me because, well, being autistic, I don't see it as a disability. I see it as a difference. Usually when you see the definition of autism, it calls it a disability. And sometimes you are not able to do some things, like you're not able to fit in with others. I understand that, but, nobody's perfect. Everybody has difficulties doing something. Everybody has some kind of a disability relative to others, so I prefer not to call it a disability, even though I understand why they say it. But the way that I treat people who don't fit in with others, I try to befriend them. That's how I treat these people. There's something inside of me that is empathetic, that makes me understand how they feel because, well, that's how I feel. I'm imagining myself in their position. And in fact, I may be in their position. If we are in the same social group, as they're not fitting in with others, I'm not fitting in with others, and so I know what they're feeling, and so I want to be as approachable as I can. I don't want to reject them. Now, sometimes Aspies, they behave like neurotypical people, and they will reject other Aspies because they don't want to be around somebody who is not cool, or however you want to say it. I got it. I understand it. And you know what? Let them be themselves. Just my opinion. That's how I treat them. Number 2, they have difficulty finding or keeping employment. That's one way to spot an Aspie. If a person with autism, if they're good at their job, if they're loyal, if they show up on time, they do everything they're supposed to do, but they just can't seem to keep the job. That's a strong indication that this person has a personality challenge, not a disability, but a personality difference that makes the hive mind, the neurotypical hive mind, say, hey, this is not a bee, this is something else. He doesn't belong here. He doesn't fit in. Why not? He's doing the job better than some of the bees are. Well, it doesn't matter. He's not a bee. He's not neurotypical. So he or she can't stay at the workplace. They push him out. I like to use the word ditch. I've been ditched so many times I can't count them. My opinion is how you should treat these people is not based upon their personality like people the neurotypical hive mind do, but I want to treat them based on their ability. I don't want to ask what is it about them that they can't do, like socialize, which has very little to do with the job anyhow, depending on the job, obviously, but most jobs got nothing to do with it. I want to know, again, if they're going to show up on time, do the job, if they're going to be consistent in showing up all the time when they're supposed to. Who cares if they're a little bit different? Number 3 is they may be obsessed with a specific topic. So you can spot an Aspie because not every Aspie has this. Obviously, not every person with autism, but they may be obsessed with one single topic. Who knows what that is? It could be just about anything, but let's say, for example, I once heard of a guy who was obsessed with BMWs. cars, BMW, right? That's what it's called. They're just obsessed with old BMWs. And he learned how to repair them. He learned how to restore them. And the story is, he made a lot of money doing that. He had this obsession. He knew how to do this thing. He became an expert at it. And it may not be cars, could be bicycles, could be just about anything, but they become experts because of their obsession with a specific topic. So how do you treat these people? Well, the way that I treat them is I admire their expertise. You know, they have this like a superpower where they're able to focus and concentrate. Where neurotypical people tend to not have that trait. Or their trait may be thin, but widespread. They may be able to concentrate, neurotypical people may be able to concentrate on a lot of things, but not in the intensity that a person with autism can focus on one thing. It's just different. Number 4 is they may be repetitive. And there's a lot of ways that people with autism are repetitive. They may do stimming, you know, where they, snap their fingers. Or I like to think of a person in a rocking chair, just rocking back and forth. That is a form of stimming. Everybody does it when they sit in a rocking chair. The problem, or let's don't call it a problem, the trait of a person with autism is he or she always seems to be in some form of a rocking chair, rocking back and forth. So maybe they're more normal than neurotypical people because they're always being repetitive. They're always stimming. How do you treat that? How do you deal with people like that? The way that I deal with them is leave them alone. Let them do it. That's how I like people to treat me. Look, that's the way I am. I'm not trying to annoy people. If you do find it annoying, go ahead and tell me that I'm being annoying, and I'll try to stop it, but I probably won't because you may think it's rude for me to be stimming, to be rocking, but then again, you may be rude for pointing it out. How would you like it, speaking to neurotypical people? How would you like it if I pointed out all of your flaws? Hey, I don't like your hair. That's not very nice, is it? No, it's rude. So don't be rude to these people. Accept them the way they are. Number 5, notice when you are trying to identify a person who is autistic. And by the way, when it comes to the formal diagnosis, I say leave that up to professionals. But you'll notice that autism seems to be more common in males than females. And Cohen, the British expert on autism, he advances that theory because he studied it so intensively, but you got to admit that sometimes autism can be camouflaged by females because their behavior, just being females, tends to sometimes overlap with autism. So it could be that it's there, you just don't see it. You just say, well, they're girls. That's the way girls are. And I get it, but sometimes not. Because I notice the girls, particularly, well, not just particularly young girls, but any women tend to be more social than men. So in that sense, women would be less autistic, or that trait would be less prevalent among women, among girls. And I recall at a birthday party for my grandson, the little boys and little girls all came together. And the little boys, without any supervision, they just naturally engaged in sports. They were playing ball. And the little girls, without being encouraged or being led in that direction, gathered together under a tree on a swing set and talked. Far more social. Or we could say they just socialized differently. So the point is, it's more common in boys. So I'm not saying every male is autistic, obviously, but if these traits are evident in a male, you might say, this is a person with autism, so how do you treat these people? Well, again, you don't treat them any different. If it's a female with autism, you don't say, well, it's a female, so maybe she really doesn't have autism. No, if she's autistic, she's autistic. So accept it and accept them as they are. Number 6, we need to keep in mind that the cause is unknown. The fact of the matter is that autism is congenital. It's there long before you have a vaccine. The fact that it's discovered about the same time that children get their first vaccine is not causation, it's just coincidence. It just happens at the same time. So the cause is unknown, and it's kind of mean, in my opinion, to treat people with autism differently because of some harebrained conspiracy theory. So how do we treat people with autism? We treat them as if the cause is not known. They're not their fault. It's not somebody else's fault. But what is the cause? We don't know. But we do know this, what research has been done. For example, there are many correlations that may not be causations, but very well could be. Probably are. For example, we know that people with autism are more likely to have fathers who are over 40 years old. So maybe there is something there that causes autism. Okay, maybe it's correlation, but man, what a coincidence. I don't think so. But the point is, how do you treat them? You don't treat them like they have some kind of a disease or that they've been abused or they were mistreated. You know, if vaccinations caused it, everybody would have autism. They don't. Number 7, they're withdrawn, but not totally withdrawn. Now, people with what we would call low-functioning autism, they are more withdrawn than others, but I know in my life, particularly as a child, but on into my adulthood, middle-aged, upper middle age, whatever that is, 50s, I guess, now that I'm in my 70s, I know sometimes, even still, I have to grapple with this thing, selective mutism, where I just become almost comatose. It's in my head, it's in my brain, it's in my neurology. I can't fix it. I can't stop it. I'm learning to deal with it, but it will always be there. And that is, I just can't mix in. You know, I like to call it the possum syndrome. My brain just freezes up under certain social circumstances. Typically, it's on a one-on-one circumstance. I'm in my shell. I can't get out of it. Now, there's some people who can come in my shell with me. And, you know, that may sound a little bit uncomfortable. And I suppose it would be if you're a turtle, but I'm not a turtle. It's a different kind of shell. And there have been, over the years, a few people that, you know, just had that ability to come on in, you know, in the bubble. And we did fine, but not too many people. So we tend to be withdrawn, but not totally withdrawn. You know, we can still function. We still go to school. We may be bullied a lot, maybe ignored a lot. Even the teachers sometimes don't understand us and mistreat us. But still, we can kind of sort of fit in. Again, it's like oil and water. We're in it, but we're just not part of it. So that is one way to recognize a person with high-functioning autism, Asperger syndrome. They're withdrawn, but not totally. How do you treat these people? I think you should befriend them. Be as kind to them as you possibly can. Understand what they're going through. Understand that they are hurt because other people reject them. And they may not be able to commensurate your kindness, but they want to, and they still appreciate it. I mean, when I'm in my shell, when I am in that comatose state, that possum syndrome state, I appreciate it when people try to be kind to me and accept me for who I am. I got to admit, sometimes they overdo it and can be a little bit annoying, even patronizing, but that happens very seldom. So how do you treat these people? Well, you understand. And again, that seems to be the common theme, is we understand people the way they are. Be nice to them. Maybe, you know, we're a little bit too nice, I don't know, but when I see somebody who's sitting all alone, they may want to be alone, but I feel sorry for them. Sometimes I approach them. Sometimes they want me to go away because, you know, I'm autistic. I'm kind of weird. They don't want to be seen with this weird guy. Okay, that's what do you call that? Social distancing? Yeah, sometimes we have to put up with that. Number 8 is body language, just different. The way they handle themselves, or I should say the way that we handle ourselves. Now, by the way, everybody has unique body language. I mean, everybody. It's like a fingerprint. Good example. When I was a kid, there were times when, we lived in the 50s. I grew up in the 50s and early 60s when families had one car. That was it. I didn't know any family, any household that had 2 cars or more, just one car. We had the family car. Our family car happened to be a 55 Chevy. And if I could find one for the right price, I'd probably buy it just for old time's sake. But I remember Mom taking Dad to work because she needed the car. And of course, she had to pick Dad up when he got off work, and I went with her. And so she went to the plant where my dad worked. And it was quitting time, and out came all these guys. There were hundreds of them. And we were sitting in the car quite a ways away. But I could tell my dad by the way he walked. He had a unique walk. And as I paid attention over the years, I noticed you can tell people who they are, identify them, by the way they walk. It's a unique fingerprint style form of body language. We all have it. But sometimes a person with autism, our body language is so different, so pronounced, that it makes us more distinguishable than other people. I mean, we got really weird fingerprints relative to everybody else. And I think part of that is because some of us are, quite frankly, we're just not real coordinated. We're not as athletic, as a way to say it, as other people. Our brain doesn't tell our body to function the way it tells other people to function. And so that body language, that way of walking, the way of handling ourselves is just so far out of the ordinary that it's easy to pick out. Well, how do you treat people like that? If you're neurotypical, chances are you're inclined to bully these people. And even if you are autistic, sad to say, but autistic people do bully other autistic people for the same reason I guess neurotypical people do. They don't want to be associated with the oddball. Social defeat is what they call that. So we live in a perennial, perpetual state of social defeat because we don't fit in. We're the oil in the water. My personal opinion is when I see the body language is different, I say to myself, this person is experiencing a challenging time. Instead of bullying the person, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to befriend the person. I'm going to be encouraging to the person. I'm going to try to show my person that I like them and I accept them. That's how you treat people with autism. So tying it all together, that's the word, acceptance. Just accept people the way they are. Not because they're autistic, but if they're autistic, yeah, or anybody for that matter. Accept them the way they are. Don't abuse people. Don't reject people. Don't define people by immutable characteristics. I know it's human nature to do that. It is human nature for us to support people like ourselves. I believe it's part of our neurological makeup. Us versus them. And if you're different, you're a them. I think that's the way we evolved. Because people who are different may be diseased. Seriously. I mean, what happened to the American Indians when the Europeans came over? How many of them died because these different people were immune to diseases that the native people were not immune to? So it makes perfect sense that nature would breed us so that we just naturally have an inclination to push away people who are different. And we can't always tell. We just know they're different. But autism is not a disease. There's nothing unique about autism because we are not a select group that sticks to ourselves. So I understand biologically, naturally, why people would reject us, but I also understand that we do have intelligence. And we do have minds that can override our natural inclinations. We can kick in our empathy, even though it may not emerge and come to the surface naturally. We can reach deep down inside of us, and we can be caring people. If we want to be, we can't be. So that's how we tie all this together. Just accept people who are autistic. They can't help themselves. It's immutable. They were born this way. It is congenital. There is a red dot lower right-hand corner of your screen. Click on it, and you can become part of our YouTube family by subscribing. Click the bell to get reminders, remind you of new uploads. There's a rectangle lower left-hand screen. Click on that to keep watching. That's our library of past videos, and we'll see you all next time.